What would you do if your life were in danger? Well, Pythagoras preferred to die rather than step into a field of beans. Yes, you heard that right. Although he's famous for his theorem, this mathematician lived by rules that today seem quite strange. But what did beans have to do with all of this? Pythagoras lived between 570 and 490 BC, but his story goes beyond the famous theorem that bears his name. He wasn't just a math genius, he was also a spiritual leader and mystical philosopher. He founded a school with very strict rules, blending science, beliefs, and philosophy in equal parts. And like any good story, the end of his life was tragic and mysterious. Today, we're going to tell you who Pythagoras really was, his life, his school, and his contributions to mathematics. Pythagoras wasn't just a mathematician, he was also a traveler. In his youth, he visited several places around the world to expand his knowledge. So, if you think traveling is a waste of time, Pythagoras proves otherwise. Egypt and Babylon, in these places, he didn't just learn mathematics but also art and music. Did you know he played the lyre, recited Homer, and wrote poetry? Yes, Pythagoras was a true multi-talented genius. He arrived in Egypt with a letter of recommendation from the tyrant Polycrates. However, after being rejected by several temples, he was finally accepted in Diospolis, but only after undergoing several initiation rites imposed by Egyptian priests. He was later captured as a prisoner of war in Babylon and, after being released, settled in Croton, now Italy, where he founded his famous school. The Pythagorean school was more than just a study group, it was practically a secret cult full of rules and rituals. They accepted both men and women, which was uncommon at the time, and they lived like monks, no personal possessions, vegetarian diets, and strict adherence to 39 rules. One of the strangest rules? No eating beans. Why? Pythagoras believed they were the gateway to the underworld and contained human souls. The Pythagoreans also believed that the soul never died but reincarnated into other living beings. According to legend, Pythagoras once begged some men not to hit a dog because, in its barking, he recognized the voice of a deceased friend. Yes, this is a real story. Even though his story might sound a bit mystical and eccentric, Pythagoras was undeniably a brilliant mathematician. To him, numbers were the essence of the universe. He believed everything could be explained through numerical proportions. He even classified numbers by gender, even numbers were feminine, while odd numbers were masculine. Quite an unusual theory, right? His work also connected music and mathematics. He sought harmony and proportion in sounds, which eventually linked to geometric ratios. And, of course, we can't forget his famous theorem. In a right triangle, the square of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the other two sides. Although his name is associated with the theorem, the Babylonians had already known about it for a long time. However, Pythagoras was the first to formally prove it, which is why he gets the credit. And now, the most shocking part. Do you remember his ban on eating beans? Well, according to a Greek biographer, Pythagoras died because he stayed true to his beliefs. The story goes that Pythagoras was fleeing from soldiers who wanted to kill him. During the chase, he reached a field of beans. And instead of crossing it to save his life, as any normal person would, he stopped in his tracks. He preferred to surrender to the soldiers rather than violate his own rule and was killed on the spot. So, the next time you hear about the Pythagorean theorem, remember that his story is about more than just numbers.